Well, good evening. Welcome. Happy New Year and welcome to another edition of Swerve with me. I'm Miranda Innes and I hope that you guys had a really amazing holiday season with your family and your loved ones. We're back. I decided to come back early because I have so many amazing stories to tell this year. You know, we started last year telling the stories of people who have overcome their challenges, who are not afraid to show their scars and to speak their truth. And this season is certainly no exception. We're continuing in the tradition of Swerve with Me, having adult conversations for mature audiences only. And tonight, it gives me great pleasure to present and introduce to some of you a former colleague of mine, a friend. We go way back to Grand Bahama and then come back to Nassau. But her name is Yvette Farrington-Clarke, and she's the author of an amazing, I want to call it self-help book called Sex for Candies. And we'll hear a little bit about her story tonight, and even more importantly, get some helpful tips for people who may be in need of people who have been suffering from PTSD and any type of depression and stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our first guest to Swerve this evening, Yvette Farrington-Clarke. Yvette, it's so good to have you here.
Thank you, Miranda. It's my pleasure. I've been waiting for this moment to share.
Awesomeness, awesomeness. Now, you know, guys, as is customary, as we come on stream to like and to share, we usually are live on YouTube as well as Facebook. And I added a new one today. I added Periscope for the first time. And so we'll see where our reach gets. I want to say, I shouldn't have brought you in already because I wanted to do this and say that we've had the amazing opportunity to reach 30 different countries. When I looked at the stats from the business, that's why I go live from the page. And so we are global. And I'm so happy that each week people tune in all over the world to watch the show. Not necessarily watch it live, but in the replay during the week. I've also discovered that we've averaged some 15,000 views per month, some 15,000 views. And so I'm really, really impressed with what God is doing through this show. But Yvette, your story is I want to say a little different. We've shared a lot. We've talked to a lot of people who have been molested and abused over the years, and in my work as a media person over the years, I've spoken to a lot of different persons. But the thing that struck me the most about your story is most of the people that we talked to, their abuse was kind of repetitive. It was repetitive, and yours was a little unusual. So the trauma for you began very, very young. Take us back to that particular day.
So my story began actually at the age of 5 years old when I was dropped off at my classroom. It was early in the year. I think I just began school, and as my memory serves me, it would have been like about maybe a couple days into starting school. And I remember my older siblings, my brothers in particular, taking me to my classroom and leaving me at the door. And then a few minutes after that, an older girl from the high school came by and asked me if I wanted candies. And so the story began because she asked me if I wanted candy. And like any 5-year-old, of course, the answer would be yes. And so I took
So,
up on the
so
offer. Yes.
at five, this your very first day at that school or at school ever?
I don't, very first day at school ever, and I don't remember if it was the very first day, but it would have been like in within the first week because I remember being brand new. I remember the scent. I can still remember the scent of the school uniform and the lunch pail, the tin that we used to take with the thermos and the Kool-Aid, and I could still remember the scent and the memory of it. So it was
Mhm.
fresh into school. Yes, my first time going to school ever. So it was all brand new for me.
Brand
And
new.
and
And so here you are excited to be getting some candy. And
yeah.
so you're walking to get this candy, and what happened?
And so on our way to get the candy, we went through, near to the school, there's a track road that leads to the store that sells all the treats that kids like. And so we went to the store and we made the purchase. She purchased the candies. There was a bag of candies and other little things in it. And she held on to it and we headed back to the school. Except
Mhm.
that on our way back, we took a slightly different route than the route we took going to the school, to the store. And so on our way back, I remember being pulled into the nearby bushes. And it was there that my fate started, that I was actually, she took my clothes off and started to have sex with me.
She physically performed a sexual
Yeah,
act
yes, yes.
with you as a 5-year-old. Now, was this somebody that you had ever seen before?
I had never ever seen her before, Miranda. And even if I see her today, I probably don't won't even know her. I've never seen her. I don't even recall seeing her after that time. I can remember how she looked at the time, but afterwards I had not seen her. I don't even know her name. I don't know who she is. I just remember the incident very clearly because she had low hair, a bald, not bald, but we call bald, very low hair. And I remember her being, I would say about 16 years old. Yeah.
About most perpetrators usually threaten their victims. Did she threaten you in any way?
Most definitely. And I think that was the reason for me keeping it a secret for so many years. She gave me, when she took me back, so after she put my clothes back on, and we went back to, and she dropped me back to my classroom. And I left standing at my classroom door, totally confused and devastated. So when I was left at my classroom, she gave me the candies and she whispered, "Now don't tell anybody."
Mm,
And
don't
so I
tell.
didn't. And so I didn't. So for 35 years, I did not tell not one single soul.
From that day that particular event happened, did you ever see the person again? Did you
I
ever
don't.
see her from school, anything? Never again.
I don't recall, and if I may have, I don't. But honestly, at this point in time, I don't recall seeing her again. I really don't recall seeing her. I haven't seen her again.
So if you're just joining us, please like and share the live stream. I'm talking to Yvette Farrington-Clarke, and she is the author of Sex For Candies. She's sharing a little bit about her journey and how her journey to wellness, I want to call it, how she was
Yes.
healed from the trauma that she suffered. And so, Yvette, I read the book today. An
Yes.
amazing read. If you haven't heard of the book, if you haven't gotten, I'm sure you can find it on Amazon and all those places like that. I'm sure you must read this book because it's not only a journey of what transpired in her life, but the healing properties of the story is what really touched my heart deeply. And so, Yvette, when I read the book, I pulled this particular sentence from the book, and it reads as follows. So it was that I spent most of my childhood, teenage, and young adult years craving for sexual experiences. I had developed an insatiable appetite for sex. Now, that
Yes.
blows my mind because you were 5 years old. You didn't even know what sex was. So
Absolutely.
at
I don't
five
know
years
if people
old,
know the level of this. Yeah.
yeah. So how did that play out to you in your recollection as a child, teenager, etc.? This insatiable, as you described it, desire, for sex.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened though. That one incident pretty much it devastated my entire life for a long time. One incident. And I don't
Hmm.
know if people understand the seriousness of the effect of it because at 5 years old, I don't know what sex is. One, I was totally confused. I was left devastated, confused, not knowing what to do, not even know what I had experienced, looking for answers, feeling rejected, feeling neglected from, and the feeling of being left alone because my siblings left me, so I felt unprotected. There was a myriad of confusion in my mind of the event that happened that pretty much threw my whole life, of course. It threw my life, of course. And
So
so that
when you say your siblings left you, I don't understand that because you mean because they were older than you, they left the home and you were living there as a younger child? Is that what you mean?
No, I was talking about the incident when the event happened. My older siblings, who were over at the high school, which was just across the street, they dropped me to my classroom and headed
Mhm,
off to play so that they could just get some playtime in. And then they went to
mhm,
their high school. So they left me alone as I felt, I mean, I felt rejected. I felt that I
mhm.
was left alone when I have all the siblings who should have protected me. I was left alone and made vulnerable and preyed on by someone else.
Mhm.
So for the early part of my life, I felt rejected by my siblings, and they didn't even know. I didn't even know. Like I said, this
Right.
whole thing was a myriad of confusion and just not knowing and not understanding what's going on and not getting answers to the questions. And so it's just all that, all everything was just playing out. It was just a bunch of negative emotions just playing out. And but I felt almost like betrayed from my siblings because they left me. I felt that someone should have been there to protect me. I have
Wow.
9 siblings, and I felt like someone should have been there to see someone pulling me away, but it never happened. It never
Yeah.
happened.
They
And I
they
really,
were children themselves.
they
They were
were,
children.
they
They were
were,
children
but I
themselves.
pretty much blamed them for many years. And I know now that I'm an adult and I understand I can't blame them because they had nothing to do with it, really.
Mhm.
But just the
So
time,
let's walk through the years and how that one act impacted your relationship. So you never told anyone, not your siblings, not your parents, not your close friends, and you're going to school day to day. How did that impact your relationships with fellow students?
pretty
Okay,
much,
look.
Miranda, for most of my life, I wore a mask. I wore a mask. So nobody knew what was happening with me. And so I live in a world of pretense. I just wore a mask and I concealed my feelings. I concealed everything. I just, everything was just, like I said, it was hidden, it was concealed and suppressed. And so, but the relationships, I did not have, I had relationship, I had friendships, but they were not lasting. When I got out of school, pretty much because I found that peace in isolation. So at one point, when I did have friends, but at one point, I became withdrawn and isolated. So I pretty much lived carrying this burden on my own for the most part of my life.
Mhm. So you went through your adult life, young adult life, basically as a loner. You did what you had to do,
Hmm.
pretty much, in your mind to cope
Yes.
and to survive. When did you realize that this was a problem for you?
And so because I was suppressing the feeling and denying it for so many years, I didn't want to see it. It
Mhm,
was constantly whenever the thoughts came, whenever I'd have dreams, because I did have recurring dreams for the greater part of my life about the event, about what happened. So it haunted me.
mhm.
But I was
Okay.
suppressing and denying it. Like, this really didn't happen. At one point, I remember thinking and saying, some of that probably never even happened. I was 5 years
So
old.
you just dismissed it. You just
Yeah,
dismissed it.
you just miss it.
But it
So
was, was a recurring dream of the actual act, or was it manifested in different ways?
in both, I would just have dreams of it was different things, always taking me back to the place, the school. So it was it was an oppressive dream that was just taking me back to my
Mhm.
childhood. I would always see myself in a room as a 5 year old, and so it was just those kinds of dreams of taking me back to the past, taking me back to the past event or to the past, the track road or the school or the home as a 5 year old. So I was pretty much trapped in that phase of my life.
So I have interviewed, like I said, several people over the years who have suffered some type of molestation. And
Mhm.
I think basically there are three different categories that I see recurring in the stories. For some, and this is women in particular, for some women, the experience of being molested has driven them to choose same sex relationships
Mhm.
in some cases.
Mhm.
For other women, it has caused them to really feel insecure and even driven in some cases to an intense hatred for men,
Mhm.
for the most part, but then still a desire or a need to want to be loved and to be with a man. And so as a result, they would keep going from man to man to man. And
Mhm.
then for another grouping of people that I've discovered, um, as a result of the molestation, they simply chose to continue to live in isolation and not
Mhm.
get involved with anyone at all. Does any one of those particular categories fit you?
I'll tell you what. Let me start by saying this though. Whenever a person is abused, sexually, physically, whatever, they people respond to abuse differently.
Sure.
Some you may even find maybe when if you continue to interview, you may find a person that has been sexually abused, and they would take that inner hatred, anger, and channel it around and become excellent at something, become an excellent
Sure.
musician, an excellent
Sure.
athlete, or something. Everybody
Mhm.
responds differently depending on it could be various reasons depending on their genetic makeup, their environment, where they grow up, many reasons that why people respond to things differently. For
Mhm.
me, my response is what happened to me. I often look at it and chuckle because someone else could have gone through this one incident unaffected, unaffected, coming out like, okay, so somebody raped me, so what? And I move on. But for me, it kept me stuck. I was stuck.
Mhm.
I was devastated. I didn't know how to get out of it. I kept replaying it. And so I was literally stuck and it devastated me. And so, but for me, I turned to a promiscuous lifestyle.
Mhm.
I had multiple sexual relationships. So that was one phase of my life until God delivered me, broke it, and I was free from it. But I was caught up in that bondage of promiscuity. What was the third one you had mentioned? Sorry, I wanted to share on that as well.
I just wanted to know if any of those scenarios, because I know people respond differently to trauma and what they face. Um,
Yes.
at that point, to explore more, because a lot of people, we see people's lives but we don't understand why they do the things that they do. One of the most profound books that I've ever read is a little book called Why I Act the Way I Do, and it's by
Mm.
a gentleman named Tim LaHaye. And he explores the different temperaments and personality types of people and the different blends that people can have because of certain experiences and their genetic makeup, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so I'm always curious, being a journalist, when I talk to people, and even in my interactions with work, when I see people react certain ways, why are they acting that way? That's something that I'm always cognizant of. And and so your behavior, somebody noticed that at some point in your life, somebody noticed that. Wait a minute, something's not lining up with her. Let's go to that part of the story and talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm smiling because, Miranda, I have the same interest. I was always all my life curious to know why people behave the way they behave. So I got to get that Tim LaHaye's book. I'll look it up when I leave the session.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So my behavior, my life, even though for many years I wore a mask and pretended to be somebody that deep down I really wasn't, eventually my behavior um, came out. Somebody noticed it. So while I was at work, apparently I had gotten caught up in promiscuous
Late.
lifestyle at this point. And I had numerous relationships. And then I also had, I was losing concentration at work, because oftentimes I would have done that. Like I would lose, I can't focus, and the concentration and dissemination, because you lose if you're not in the present. There's so many different things happens with emotions, right? This is years of battle of this. And so on my job, I started to lose control. I started to lose control, and I started to, so I was not focused. I was failing at everything, like nothing was coming together. My work, I was not productive. I was not, and then of course the promiscuous lifestyle. And so somebody noticed, my boss noticed something was wrong. And he pulled me aside one day and said, "You need help. Why don't you go and see a counselor?" And he referred his cousin who was a counselor. And that was the beginning of my healing process, because going to the counselor, I was able to open up and finally share about my early childhood sexual molestation.
What was that like when was that moment when recommended that you go and see a counselor? Was that like an exhale moment, or were you apprehensive and a little uncertain about what the experience would be like?
I'll tell you what, it was all in one. It was everything you
Yeah.
just said. Because first of all, one, I was embarrassed.
Mhm.
I was embarrassed because somebody actually noticed what I was trying to hide all these years. And
So
then
let me just interject there. Did he notice because of your performance on the job, or did he notice because of your behavior, socially, emotionally? What was it that he noticed?
I think it was all of them that he noticed. Mostly it was the performance on the job that led to the emotions, and it was kind of all in one. He noticed something was awry.
Mhm.
Something was not normal. Your behavior's not normal. Your performance is not lining up. So something is wrong, and you need help. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, I was relieved, yet embarrassed, but relieved because this was 35 years I was carrying this baggage,
Mhm.
a baggage that was very, very heavy. Because I never got help, the emotions was turning into one big ball, one big baggage and one ball. So at that point in time, it was very heavy. I was ready to snap and break at any minute. It was heavy. And so I was really, really grateful. And I remember thanking him actually for it afterwards, because that was the beginning of my deliverance, of my healing. And so I remember saying how grateful I was to him for that.
Mhm. So going to this counselor and just the how regular did you attend counseling? Because there's still a stigma in a country around the world. I would say not just our country, the Bahamas, but in the Black community in general.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a stigma attached to perhaps seeing a counselor or a therapist, or getting therapy or anything like that. So how often did you attend? And once you started, did was there ever a time that you kind of thought, you know what, I'm not going back anymore because this is too painful?
Actually, no, for me, it was such a relief. I was looking for that outlet. I was looking for somewhere to release all that negative energy, to find relief from my pain, from my hurt. And I found it there. So for me, that was a pleasure. I found it there. And one of the things that my counselor had asked me to do was to start journaling. That was one of the assignments I had to do. I went, I can't remember if it was once or twice a week. It may have been twice a week, or it started twice a week and then we went to once a week.
Mhm.
But and it was ongoing until I got to a comfortable place. But I found such relief in doing it that I didn't want to stop. And hence the reason why I wrote the book after journaling. And I wrote the book because I want others to get the help that I got. I
Absolutely.
want, yeah, I just want to share it with the world. Like anybody, if you've been abused and you need help, like here's what to do, or here's some advice. But
Mhm.
because I found such comfort and relief, I just, that was it for me. that was the place. I needed to be there. I was so glad and grateful that I found that. And so, yeah, it worked for me.
So you were diagnosed at some point with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read this excerpt from your book. And it says, while I was experiencing the symptoms of depression pretty much for the most part all of my life, symptoms of deep sadness, hopelessness, moodiness, withdrawal, anxiety, and fear, it wasn't until 2010 that I was diagnosed with this major depressive disorder. And I know that there are so many people walking around who have never been clinically diagnosed with depression, myself included, by the way, because I kind of think at some point I was in a depression. And the reason I've concluded that is because there was a period in my life that I call the dark period, right? Where I did not, well, almost every period I didn't want to be bothered with people, but this period in particular, like I really, if I did not have to go out, I didn't leave. I did
Okay.
not leave my, they were closed. I did not want the sunlight again. And then so I knew that I was going through a depression. And that depression for me was based on the fact that I was simply dissatisfied at that point with my life the way it was. And I knew that I could be doing better and I should be doing better. But at that particular point, I was stuck and I just didn't know how. And so let's talk a little bit about in those moments of depression, what would moodiness look like for you or whatever, well, the mood swings, like let's talk a little bit about that because the whole purpose of the show is so that people can begin to see and get some clues and hints that, hey, you know what, maybe I should go and talk to somebody about this. So talk a little bit about when you were in that mood, that whole depression. What was that like? Because I know it manifested differently at different times. So what was that like?
Well, a person is only diagnosed with major depression or depressive disorder if they continue to see or continue to be in the depressed state for 14 days or more.
Mhm,
And so if the that's if the depression is consistent and it's there and you see these same traits over and repeatedly for 14 consecutive days, and then it goes and comes back again for 14 consecutive days or more, that's when it's labeled or considered depression or
mhm,
depressive, major depressive disorder, sorry. So for me, what it looked like was isolation for a long time. I, like you too, did not want to be bothered, wanted to be to myself. I was happier alone than with a crowd. What was so strange about Miranda, my life, is that all of what I went through, nobody knew.
mhm,
People couldn't see it. I had a mask on that kind of covered it all. And the danger in that is that when you continue to hide and submerge the feelings and the thing and not get help, you're leading yourself to greater damage and destruction. And in our culture, I just want to say to
mhm,
talk about me, I don't want to stay on what I did, but in our culture, what I learned is that people don't acknowledge or identify or admit to being depressed. We don't
Sure,
talk about in our
sure.
culture.
And before you go ahead with that, because we're going to get to that later to go through some of the things that you talk about in your book,
Mhm.
but I just want to go to the comments and one someone asks, Mary Flower says, "How do you know you are depressed?
Again, you
How
know
do
the
you
sign. Yeah, and again, you'll see those same signs: the mood, the anxiety, the isolation, the withdrawal. You don't want to be with somebody. That deep sadness, that feeling of sadness, the unhappiness. Those are all the symptoms of depression. For me, I didn't know I had it. I didn't know what depression looked like. I was experiencing the symptoms, but I didn't know what depression was until I went to the doctor. To a psychiatrist. And when I went
sure,
and that's when I got the diagnosis. I never knew I was depressed. I
right?
had all the symptoms, but I didn't know it was depression. And so having been diagnosed with widowhood, what confirmed and sealed it that that was actually depression. But you'll have all those symptoms that I mentioned, the withdrawal, you don't want to be bothered. You don't feel like talking to nobody at no point. The things that you once enjoyed doing, you don't no longer enjoy doing it. These are all signs and symptoms of depression.
Okay.
So, mhm.
So experiences this going to a psychiatrist, getting this diagnosis. What was the cause of action after that diagnosis? I know you continued to go. Did they prescribe medication? Did you try the medication? What was that process like? Because somebody may, like when it comes to the medication, and I've actually had friends
Mhm.
who have been on the medication and off the medication, and
Mhm.
just yeah, just some really interesting things have happened to some friends of mine. What was your experience like? First of all, were you prescribed anything, and did you decide to take it?
And so, yes, I was prescribed medication, and no, I did not take it. I took them for two, maybe 3 days, 2.5 days. I didn't like the way it made me feel. So I discontinued and I opted, I'm going to get some natural remedies.
Uh-huh.
That was my conclusion. I'm going to find a way to beat this thing other than the medication, because I don't like the medication. I don't like its reaction. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like it. And so I
Uh-huh.
discontinued, and I sought other alternative, and that's what I'm going to share in my book. When you once you allow me to share those coping
Yeah.
strategies and other things that I
So
did.
I want to read another excerpt from your book, and it says you participated in a trial, in essence, in 2014, and was there that you found out that you had PTSD, now post traumatic stress disorder. Most of us that have heard the term, we associated with war veterans and things like that traditionally. But you found out in that experience that okay, this is what's happening to me.
Uh-huh.
How was that manifesting? Because you also talked about some triggers, and so yeah, let's talk about the for you, what it was for you, because again we keep stressing that each person's experience is different and unique to them in some aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing that, that's what I want to go to the emotion of hearing somebody say you have PTSD. Like, how do you react to that?
Yeah, so I was given an ad where they was doing a trial, and they didn't come on and say it on the ad, but they listed all of the symptoms that this person have. And
Hmm.
so when I presented myself, and then after presenting myself and the research was done, the symptoms, the diagnosis was that this is all as a result of PTSD. Um, what that really is, PTSD is a mental disorder that can develop after a person is exposed to traumatic event. It can be one
Hmm.
event, it can be two events. And these events, such as mostly in instances of sexual abuse, sexual assault. So it occurs after a person has been exposed to a traumatic event.
Hmm.
Unfortunately for me, and I keep saying this, that one incident through my whole life, of course, for the greater
Hmm.
part of my life. I lost control for a long time of my life from one single event.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so the post traumatic stress was what it looked like. Um, Again, some of the symptoms of depression and recurring of the event, which causes nightmares, lots of emotional problems, emotional deficit. So it pretty much leaves you in a negative mental state. And
Hmm.
some of the other symptoms with PTSD, and I think I mentioned some in the book as well, is dissemination. That's where you're not in the present. You're not. You're not there. You're like you're going through the motion. Your life is on autopilot, And
Mhm.
let me find the best way to explain that. I'm saying it, but I don't know if people understand what I'm saying. Because for a greater part of my life, I had experienced this. Um, I was in class, I was in school for a long time and not even not even grasping what the teacher is saying. So I'm sitting in class and they're talking and I'm not hearing a word. I share a story also in my book about one of the experience I had when I was actually in school and I took the BJCs, not the BGCSE, but the BJC at the time, and during the ninth grade. And because my mind was so not present, I took the test, five of them particularly, and I remember clearly going to get the results when they had called us to give us the results. And I remember standing in the line, Miranda, and I remember standing in a very long line. And when I finally got to the front of the table where the teacher was giving out the results, she asked my name and my date of birth, and I gave it. And holding a pen and paper in my hand, like they had asked us to bring to record your results. I remember her saying fail all. And I feel like crying right now because I can still
Wow.
remember that point and that moment when I failed. I'm going to school and everybody else around me, and I'm actually in class and I'm pretending to look like I'm successful and doing well. But and she said, fail all. I remember the embarrassment, and I walk away from um, that desk saying, fail all.
Mhm.
And I remember the struggle of pretty much all of school because I lacked the concentration. My mind from that incident of 5 years old, because I kept it bottled and kept fighting it on my own, I was so unable to clearly define life and the, everything about life and the lessons I'm learning in school. I lacked concentration. And so I was failing. I was failing. I was failing.
Okay. You were failing in some areas, but yet clearly functional in other areas. Because I know you personally as a multi-talented, multi-gifted person, and so that's the I guess that's the dichotomy of
Yes,
being
yes,
functional yet dysfunctional,
yes,
and
yes.
not unlike and not unique to you, and not unlike many of us,
Right,
functional in some areas and just completely dysfunctional in others.
right.
Um, I want to read another excerpt from your book related to the PTSD, and it says
Uh-huh.
you gave an example of the triggers, like whenever you would drive through
Yes.
a poor neighborhood or something, and you would view the dilapidated buildings, et cetera. It caused a trigger inside of you. A trauma was renewed in you because, again, you said you came from a large family and all that stuff and the dissociation, explain that because you mentioned that in the book, so let's talk a little bit about that dissociation and what does that mean.
Yeah, and what that pretty much is being distant from reality and what's actually
Mhm.
happening. So you're not in the here and now. You may be present in body, but mentally and emotionally, there's a disconnect.
So that's related to what was happening while you were in school.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so okay, I get it. So the
Yes.
triggers now, passing through an old neighborhood or something, so let's address that.
Yeah, and I mentioned the triggers because at the age of 5, we lived in poverty. So anything that happened during that time and age and era would remind me or bring me right back to the incident or anything surrounding that time, that era. And so the re-traumatization comes when I would even like going into a school when school is just opening or preparing my son for school when he's going back to school, and the scent of new school uniform, the lunch tin and books, the scent of it. School has a scent to me now that I
Mhm,
associate with, and I get that scent, and it brings me right back to that time when I entered school and I was molested. There's a
mhm.
feeling that comes over me, and I have to manage it. Well, I know now how to. easy, but back then I didn't know how to manage it. But there was a constant there's a feeling that comes, an airy feeling, a feeling of unhappiness, sadness, a feeling of fear, trauma that comes because of the incident that happened, because I can smell the scent of that time. The when I see, like I said, the area when I see poverty, it brings me back to the time, that same time when I was poor and didn't have. I don't know how I associate it, but it does. It triggers and brings me back to that point. And I'm gratefully, I'm grateful now that this I it and then haunt me, like it did in the past. And so, but yeah, it reflects and brings it right back to the incident, right back to the time, the era of when the incident happened.
Okay, so if you're just joining us once again, I'm talking to Yvette Farrington-Clarke. She is the author of Sex for Candies, and she's sharing a story and will, in a moment, give us some tips because she talked about being able to manage because we know that trauma doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away. It lies dormant. And of course, there are triggers that can cause this thing to erupt all over again. But you've learned how to manage and you are managing it as you go along. So let's talk a little bit about before you get to the place of managing it, rather. I think I want to roll it back a little bit to acknowledging that something has happened to you. And let's talk about the steps that people need to take um, if they know, because I also know that I've spoken to people, Yvette, that because they suppressed what happened to them,
Mm-hmm.
they literally just did not remember until something happened. And then it came back to them. So for someone who may not remember, and somebody may say, I don't want to remember. I don't want to revisit, that pain or that trauma, but talk a little bit about because what you've done, what is so amazing about your story is you didn't just play victim. You sought help, you went to the professionals, and then you began to study and to equip yourself to help and assist others. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But talk to me about the steps that one should take should they suspect or know if they were in a state like you where they literally suppressed what happened to them for whether it's a day or 10 days or 10 years. Talk, give us the steps that one should take in order to overcome this trauma.
But before I give the steps, let me say this: that suppression only mask it for a while, because deep down, what is inside will eventually come up. It's going to come out through nightmares, dreams. It's going to recur. It's still with you. Your emotions will change because something inside is affecting the event that is causing a negative emotion. So somewhere downside, you may be suppressing, but subconsciously, you're still dealing with it. You're still seeing it. You're still facing it. So it's still there. But the first advice that I usually give to people is to first admit that it happened. And then secondly, get help. Get
Mm-hmm.
help. Help meaning, and if you don't want to go to a counselor, help meaning talking about it. The first step, talking about it to a friend that you can trust, a pastor that you can trust. And when I first wrote the book, Miranda, I wrote it actually for kids. So I tell them about going to their pastors, their teachers, their guidance counselor, any adult that they can trust, and talk about it. Because the healing will only happen once you get it out. Once you get it out, keeping it suppressed is not going to help the situation, because eventually it will come out one way or the other. It's just like putting water into a full cup. It's going to rim over. It's going to eventually come out. And so my advice is always admit first, acknowledge and admit, so that the healing can begin. The second thing is to get the help. My recommendation is always professional help. And I said a disclaimer in my book because I'm really not a counselor or psychologist.
Right.
What I do is, I studied the cognitive behavioral therapy for myself and to help others so that I can
Mhm.
teach it to help others, to
Right.
help them to overcome and strengthen them. But the first thing, I mentioned the first, sorry, is getting the help, professional help. And then of course I'll go on. You want me to go on to the others now? I'd like to.
Sure. Go to the others. Wait,
Yeah.
no. Before you go on, a
Okay.
question just popped in my mind.
Good.
Because you said get help or talk to someone. But what do you say to the person who tried that, who told someone and they didn't believe them?
Life brings disappointment. I mean, we can't just give up on one thing. And that's why the strategies that I'm going to share is not a one fixed thing. Literally, you have to try everything that and anything that can help you. So if you've tried, you spoke to someone, there are many people out there. The world has almost 7 billion, over 7 billion people. There is someone out there that you can find and trust and talk to. And if you don't feel like talking to someone personally, then go and get professional help from a counselor. I mean,
Mm.
but there's a myriad of help. Help is everywhere. We just need to open up and seek it. But help is out
Mhm.
there. Help is
Okay.
definitely out
And
there.
even for a child who may have told the parents or whatever and they didn't believe. What do you say to a child, a teenager, uh, or a younger child? What do you say to them?
And my advice would be the same. Really find someone that you can trust. And then I know how disappointing it is when you confide in someone that can't help or that disappoints you. I know the feeling of that. But find someone else. There is someone. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in that situation forever. Find someone. There is someone out there. There is someone out there that can provide the help. You just got to
Mm.
seek them out.
Okay, so
Guidance
you talked
counselors in
about,
schools. And
okay.
my advice again to school age students, there's the guidance counselor, the teacher, the some may even go to the extreme of the principal, I mean, the friend, some peer, the prefect, somebody that's a senior, some senior authority. But find help. Help is out there. There's
Mhm.
the police, and I don't know if you want to take it to the extreme, but I'm saying that someone that's close to them that they can trust rather than going out and calling the police. They can do that as well. And social service also
Mhm.
provides a forum where they provide help. But
Right.
I was referring to someone that's really close to you. Find someone close to you that you can confide in. Anyone that you can confide in, even if you don't know them, but you feel like you can trust the person because they look reputable. Just confide in them. But help is out there.
Okay, and let's go through the other steps. Go through the other steps that you have, that you recommend, rather that they should take.
Yeah, so my very first one I talk about is establishing a prayer life, that relationship with God and a prayer life. We all need, we all have a need, actually, I should say, of wanting a superior being in our life, someone that can help us, someone that's greater, more powerful than us, someone that has the ability to help us out. That comes from me. It came through my relationship with God. So my advice, the very first one, is to establish a prayer life, a relationship with God, and find that solace in Him, because you cannot do it on your own strength. This is something that cannot be won on your own power, on your own strength. So find that source of strength that can help you to overcome. And that was the very first one. The
Mhm.
second one I shared was that of meditation, because I've discovered this while while overcoming the PTSD and the cognitive behavior therapy. One of the things I did was engage in meditation. So I learned to practice the breathing exercise that helps to slow the pace in my mind, because my mind was always racing. It was always going ahead, and I needed to slow it down a bit. And the
Mhm.
meditation has helped me to really slow things down and get in the right rhythm of life, and start to think clearly. It helped me to
Mhm.
think more clearly. Um, Gave me good cognition because I had oftentimes lost that. So it
Mhm.
helped me in that area. And so I do simple exercises, like I recommend simple. I'm not a I've taken it to a different level now. Where but I would, my advice to people is to just, if you haven't done it, just start with five step breathing. Breathe 5 seconds. Sorry, breathing exercises.
Mhm.
By breathing in, exhaling out, and do it repeatedly until you can calm your mind. You will see a difference. You'll really see a difference. And the third thing was to do physical exercise. Physical exercise for me has been my redemption. Um, it- Not only to keep weight off, but it just helps to release the dopamine and the positive energy and juices to get you feeling good, to give you the good feeling,
Mhm.
to help you to function better, because it's all about creating the good functionality in life. And so physical exercise will do that 20 to 30 minutes a day for 3 to 5 days a week can help. You'll see a tremendous difference as well. And then the fourth thing I had here was maintaining a healthy diet. I found that even when I changed my diet, so even eliminating certain foods had helped me tremendously too. And when I go when I get off course and cheat and eat bad, I can feel the effects of it. I can literally feel it. So I've taken a stance to avoid foods such as high in sugar and flour, white flour food, and processed food, and foods that are not good for the body. But
Mhm.
yeah, but leaning more to foods that are more healthy, nutritional, like the naturals, the greens, and
Yeah.
healthy foods. So the fifth thing, I know I've told many people about this, and they didn't quite agree, but for me this has helped too with helping to build. And this is my doctor's recommendation, but getting the vitamin, the supplements that you need um, to help you to manage throughout the day. Right now, I take 8 different supplements a day, every day, and I'm probably looking at some other ones too. But these things help. And the last one that I think this is the last one that I shared is getting involved in a cognitive behavior therapy treatment. CBT treatments, and I'm telling because I tried it and it worked so well for me. I told you that pretty much all
Mhm.
my life how I struggled. But when I came in contact with the CBT approach, cognitive behavior therapy, which is it just help, which is a program that helps to um, enhance the mental state, your mental state. And so when I
Mhm.
discovered that, um, doing all of these things with that, applying the cognitive behavior therapy approach, maintaining a healthy diet, exercising, staying in a prayer life, meditation, and all these things that I mentioned. And I mention all of them because one or two or three may work, but
Mhm.
yeah, but I need it all. I needed to keep everything moving. And the thing is with this, right? We have to keep at it. It's not a one night overnight fix. You
Yeah.
know, like you don't just do it once and everything changes, because this is an ongoing process. It's a lifestyle change. And so this has been, it's been working for me, keeping me
Mhm.
sane, keeping me on top of things.
So
It's
let's go back to when we mentioned if there's something that triggers you, like what's your go-to response to a trigger? What if you pass through a area that reminded you of your childhood or whatever? What would you do?
and as these very um, coping strategies I mentioned, they help me
Hmm.
to manage exactly what you just said. So because
Hmm.
I've been applying these things, when that incident happened, whenever I get now, for me, as I go through,
Hmm.
I see it, but I don't see it. I don't feel it.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Because
that's
you've
because I've
learned how to
applied these.
manage it.
Yeah, I've been
Hmm.
managing it. So it doesn't affect me anymore in that way. I know what it is.
So
I
for
know what it was in the past, but it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me adversely anymore.
so for someone who has not yet learned how to manage,
Mhm.
and they may experience a trigger. What would
Mhm.
you recommend? What do they do? Like, what do I do? Do I start breathing differently? Like, what is it that you recommend I do?
As simple as that may sound, the breathing does work
Hmm.
because they're already hyperventilating. So the breathing relaxes the mind and calms it down, slows the pace down. And so that's one of the
Mhm.
quick fixes that they can apply.
Mhm.
That's really one of the quick fixes. That was a good one that you mentioned, because they can't do the other.
Mhm.
The other ones are kind of, you have to be intentional, go towards them. But the breathing one is a quick fix.
Yeah.
Anytime you find yourself in a situation where your emotions are out of control and you start to feel the re-traumatize, experience re-traumatization, I should say. A
Mhm.
quick fix is to apply the breathing techniques. And I don't know if anybody knows it. If you don't, you can go on YouTube. You can find breathing exercises on YouTube. For me, I have Active, and that's through Audible. But there are many out there. Again, it's life has changed so much, Miranda, that we have so much at our fingertips. And sometimes you don't even have to pay for it.
Mhm.
YouTube provides so much benefits for us, and it's all free. So breathing techniques, breathing exercises can be found on YouTube free of charge, where they can apply it. And if you do it for, people start at 5 minutes, but if I've been doing 20 minutes, because it helps to really calm me and put me in a place where I'm relaxed and feel like I'm in control. So it gives you
Mhm.
the control back. And
Uh-huh.
so, for anyone that's feeling like they're losing control, that's one of the quick fixes. But I would recommend that they apply almost all of the recommendations given, just so that they
Sure.
can know how to manage well. Yeah.
Mhm. Where can somebody get the book? Where can they get the book? Tell them all the places they can get the book.
Yeah. So the book can be found on Amazon, Kindle, and as well as they can reach the National Lead Institute, leadinstitute.org online. I guess once you get to Lead Institute, you'll also find the phone contacts there, but I'll give you the local numbers. So our number is 602. I need to say 242 first, sorry, Miranda, because you're in the States. So it's area
Mhm.
code 242 602 1768. And of course, my cell is area code 242 432 7528. And of
Okay.
course,
And
you can reach me on
the
Facebook.
CBT, I want to delve a little bit more into the CBT, that cognitive behaviors therapy. Uh, is it something that um, once the participant begins it, they get to a place where um, okay, I don't need it anymore, or is it a structured type of program where you have to do it for X number of weeks? Yeah, I just heard
So,
something.
I'm sorry.
I was hearing some feedback. I don't know if that's a microphone or something.
Yeah, I'm hearing static in the mic as well.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, so the cognitive behavior therapy approach we actually provided at the National Lead Institute. We
Mm-hmm.
run a program that runs for 36 weeks. And the program actually, what it does is it begins to change the person from the inside out. So it changes the way they think, the way they behave, and it's a 12-step program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an ongoing program that provides a 12-step that
And they
change.
once they go to the website, all the details of if they should choose that therapy are right there
They
listed.
should find that at the National Lead Institute. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
It's
there anything else that you want to say to somebody out there who's watching and will watch this about if they've been a victim, what to do? Yeah, just speak to that person because the fun part is coming after this. It's not intense the whole
so I know that sexual abuse experience is a very hard blow. It's not comfortable. I Whenever I share publicly about my experience and I share my book, at the end, at the book signing, I always get people come to me and say, I've been sexually abused as well, but how do you get the courage to tell your story? How do you open up and share your story? Because nobody knows, nobody
time.
knew about my experience. So I hear it a lot. For me, while it took me 35 years to get to the point to share, once I started to share, I never stopped because I want to help people get out of the bondage that I was once entrapped in. And
Mhm.
so I share because I'm transparent and open because I want people to get help, the help they need. And so if I found I got my deliverance um, through the application of these strategies. I want to help people to do that too. I want people to get out. I want people to be free and
Mhm.
liberated and get out of the bondage. And so that's why I've been sharing. So if you are a victim, sorry, my advice to you is get help as quickly as possible. Um, I can imagine, and I know, not imagine, but I've actually experienced the devastation that it can cause on an individual, and not just on the individual, but once you start to get into having a family, you're still dealing with those negative emotions, and then you have others involved, and so you got to deal with temperaments, moods, and all the stuff from your past. So get help,
Mhm.
seek professional help, so that you can be restored, that you can be healed. And so that's
Mhm.
pretty much my advice is to do it sooner than later. The sooner the better.
Okay, you caused me, you triggered something inside me to ask you another question. And you mentioned about the family involvement. And obviously, when you start sharing your story, you're
Mm-hmm.
mindful that whatever you say impacts your family, your immediate family, and that's
Absolutely.
whether you're married or not, siblings, etc. So I want to ask you, once you decided to put this your story in print,
Mm-hmm.
did you have a conversation with your siblings prior to doing this? Or did you have that moment when you said to the older siblings in particular, the ones who you thought were responsible or should have been more responsible, did you have that conversation with them?
Let me tell you how it happened for me, Miranda. So when I wrote the book, I had never shared it with anybody. Like I said, only the counselor. So once I wrote the book, and of course my friend who did the graphics and all the print for the book and got it printed, we were the only ones who knew the story then. And then my very first print, as a matter of fact, before it went to print, I gave it to my sister to read. This
Okay.
was my way of saying, this is what happened to me. This is what I experienced. I'm an introvert by nature. So I don't really go out and share it. I didn't, I should say. But my way of getting it out to my family was by sharing my book. So I had my sister read my book, and then she had her daughter read the book, and then my other sister read the book. Then everybody read the book. So my entire family has read the book.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that was my way of getting them to know my story, to know my
Mhm.
pain, to know my devastation. And so now, but I'm grateful that I have the support of my family, though. My family, I love my family to death. They have been so good. While I grew up not understanding why what I called rejected me, neglected me, they have been there for me. They've been very good moral support for me, and I'm so grateful to have a family like the one I have.
Awesomeness. Awesomeness.
Mhm.
So we're switching gears now and moving to what I call the lightning round. And this is the round where it's fun and I just ask you questions and you give me one word answers, whatever comes to the top of your head, no explanations necessary.
Uh-huh.
Just go for it.
Okay.
So question number one, where do you want to go more than any place in the world?
Hawaii.
Okay. What is your absolute number one pet peeve?
What's my pet peeve? What's my pet peeve? Oh God. One word?
If you got two or three,
Okay.
but it should be one word.
It should be. I don't know. What's my pet peeve? I don't know pet peeve. I should
You
have one.
don't have, so you just easy. You don't have anything that
I,
really annoys you and gets under your skin
I do. I just I guess loud speaking people. People that speak loud.
for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I just can't deal with the loud talking, loud voice.
Okay. What is your favorite attribute about yourself?
That I am compassionate.
And what's your least favorite?
That I'm sometimes shy.
Sometimes
Shy.
I think shy.
Shy.
Okay. All right. Coffee or tea?
It used to be tea, now it's becoming coffee. Oh,
Okay.
tea
Any
though.
particular reason why you taking in more caffeine?
Because now my body can manage, maintain it.
Okay. All right. Okay. What's your bad side? Like, what's the side of you that you people don't really want to get on? So what's that bad side?
Oh, Jesus. My, my bad
Adult
side.
conversations for mature audiences only. This is what you get.
Oh God, my bad side.
What's
Just
your
don't
bad
don't
side?
just don't lie. Just tell the truth. Just don't lie.
Okay. So if somebody lies and you find it out, it's like, you know what? You want a
Yeah,
timeout, and this may be a permanent
yeah.
timeout for
Just
you.
forget. Yeah, forget you.
Okay. Do you believe in having things organized all the time, or are you more spontaneous? I keep hearing this
Organized.
crackling sound, and I
I'm
don't know
hearing it. I'm hearing
why.
it too. I'm hearing it too. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm hearing it too. Yeah.
Okay. So are you organized or more spontaneous?
Definitely organized.
Definitely organized. Um, what would spontaneity look like if you're so organized?
Oh gosh. Probably going shopping. um,
Spontaneity for you. Okay. Okay. That's a work in progress.
I know, right?
Shopping,
Yeah.
spontaneity.
Gosh.
That's really funny. It's really funny. Okay. Okay. This is the part that I like. Okay, this is the behavior things like Goombay punch or lemonade or
Lemonade.
switcher, as you call it.
Switcher.
Lemonade. Okay. Why is that? Okay. Pineapple tart or coconut tart.
Definitely coconut. Love coconut.
Okay. How about crack conch or shrimp?
Oh, that's rough. Shrimp.
You're no real behavior.
Oh,
Shrimp
that,
over
oh,
conch. Oh
oh,
my gosh.
the count defines that you're behaving. Sorry.
It's okay. Listen, it's just fun. Okay. Do you have an all-time favorite movie?
Yeah, it's Evan Almighty. Used to be Coming to America, but now it's Evan Almighty.
Evan Almighty. Okay. Is that the one with Jim Carrey? Is he
Yes.
in that? Carrey.
Uh, Not Jim. Steve Carey.
Steve Carey. Okay. I don't know that one then. Um, and what other than the Bible, and other than your own book, what is the most impactful book that you've ever read?
Um, I think it's How to Pitch Anything. How
Okay.
to Pitch Anything by Oral Claff. I found that book so profound that pretty much changed my life. That took me to a different level,
Mm-hmm.
knowing how
Yeah,
to.
that is a really good book.
Yeah.
And finally, you are the mother of a beautiful little boy, TJ. What is your greatest desire for your son?
That he be successful in life. He aspires to be a billionaire, and I just want him to be successful in life. What success look like is that he's happy with whatever he comes with his final outcome in life.
Awesomeness. Okay, and finally, are you more? No, I take that one back because I already know the answer. Are there any I was going to say, if you're more comfortable in open spaces or in quiet, closed spaces, but I already
Quiet,
know the answer.
quiet,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
it's like nah, that one's a no-brainer. Okay, So this one is a little more personal. What is your love language? Like what is that?
So, giving and then service.
Service. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That's
yeah.
a demonstration. Do you have a favorite artist? And this can be either a visual artist or singer,
Mm.
just an artist in general. Yeah.
Um, Singer wise, Travis Green. Uh, visual art. My favorite right now. But singer wise, Travis Green.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
fine. Okay. So that's it. Let me just go through, see if I see any comments. Okay, so Pauline says, awesome. Pauline McAlpin, hey Pauline, awesome
Hi,
story.
Pauline. Hi,
Kizzy
Pauline.
Wiley Mitchell says, every experience causes a different reaction. It's
Mhm.
like looking for love in all the wrong places. These are obviously related to something you would have said earlier.
Right.
Um, what else? Mary Flowers wanted to know where to get the book, so you gave her that information.
Yes.
Um, Joba Mendez says, you will live with it. It never really goes completely away. Never really
Absolutely.
goes completely
Right.
away. Oh, Mary Flowers wanted you to repeat your number again.
Okay.
Repeat your number again.
Okay, sure. So the numbers are 242-602-1768. And my cell phone is 242-432-7578.
Okay, and then finally, Dorothy Cooper says, great information, Yvette. Great information.
Hi,
And so with
Dorothy.
that, we're going to bring to an end this first in this brand new year. Swerve with me, Yvette. It has been such an awesome pleasure and honor to have you sitting with me tonight, swerving with me, and sharing your story that I have no doubt will cause somebody to push and to seek the help that they need. And make sure and reach out to Yvette. Reach out to her if you can't find a trusted person, but you can relate to something that she may have shared or something. Reach out to her and start the work and begin to share the story so that you can find the healing that you need in order to cope and to manage and navigate through this world. And so I want to thank all of you that have tuned in tonight. Remember to share the story. We want as many people as possible to benefit from this. Um, and I just want to say, oh, so many people are just saying good night and thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. You've been hanging for me all the first season. Trust me, the second season, every round goes higher and higher. Um, by the way, next month, it's relationship months. That's February. Y'all got to tune in. I'm talking to multi generational couples, I'm talking to relationship experts. We're just going to have a time exploring and probing relationships and different types of relationships as we often do. And so, once again, Yvette, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. Wishing you the greatest success in every single thing that you endeavor to do this year. Thank you to your husband for all of his, Troy, for all of his technical assistance.
Yeah.
And I'll see all of you again next week, same time, same place. Swerve with me. This is a place where we have adult conversations for mature audiences only. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.